Hello everyone, today we have a very control lockdown heavy deck. Now, if you've watched my content for a while, you know that I enjoy several different archetypes that just really resonate with me as a player. Those being Junk, Blood, so like Zoo style that you just burst a lot of stuff on the board on the last turn, and then a very control heavy no turn 6 for you style deck. Now, the idea for me with a no turn 6 for you style deck is to lock the opponent out from being able to play anything on the last turn of the game. This is going to help you in several matches. A lot of times people will get very greedy with wanting to be able to do their stuff on the last turn. That way it's not going to be able to be countered by a Shang-Chi, by an Enchantress, and if you make it where they just can't play on the last turn, then you are much more likely to win. So the idea with this list is to always have some low-cost resources to be able to utilize and lean in on, being your Nebula. Titania is more of a late-game, in-game card. Sometimes you'll use her in unison with Goblin to cap out a location, and then later you can call that Goblin back. We have our main lockdown engines or components in the Storm, Spider-Man, and Professor X. All of those are fantastic. The most ideal line is going to be Storm into something like Drax, or into like a Lizard and a Jeff, into a turn 5 Spider-Man plus like a 1-cost card. So a Spider-Man plus whatever Maria Hill generated. Spider-Man plus Titania is sometimes worthwhile, especially if you're going to be leaning in on like the Doctor Doom play on the last turn of the game. And so this deck does utilize Jeff. Jeff is just so pivotal in this kind of archetype or this style that he's really hard to replace. Having that flexibility to be able to play into those lockdown locations, be able to play into a Professor X lane. So if you don't draw Spider-Man, your second way to lock the opponent out of most of the locations on the last turn is to Professor X on turn 5 into turn 6. If you don't have Jeff, you can replace it for another low cost. I probably wouldn't do anything over 2 cost. So like a Nightcrawler, maybe a Scorpion to negatively impact the opponent's cards, but in general, it's going to be just a little bit worse for wear without Jeff. Daredevil is huge in being able to give you that lockdown read for your Professor X on turn 5, or knowing where to drop your Spider-Man if you don't have your complete lockdown package in your Storm and your Spider-Man. Overall, the deck is incredibly restrictive. It is a control-heavy build, so there is a sub-note that you need to play it aggressively, or you're going to get a lot of 1-cube retreats. Now, that doesn't mean just go in and snap every single game, but if you look like you have your ideal line, you think you're going to be able to outposition the opponent and completely lock them out and make them have inopportune play lines, then snap early. Snapping in on 4 is so much more likely to be accepted rather than snapping on 5 when you have Daredevil on the board, because if they know that you're going to see what they play, I get skittish if somebody snaps on me after I play following the Daredevil, unless I just have a really strong follow-up as a player. And so if you snap on 4, it's a lot more likely to go through before Daredevil comes down, giving you that key or critical information to be able to position your cards on turn 5 to find a way to win. And so we're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, next up we have Jeff. And I did face Jeff while I was brewing one of my other builds. He was running an ongoing version of Thanos, so one that runs Claw, Onslaught. I would assume he's probably recording on stream or looking for games or clips on stream to be able to showcase. And so we get a little bit of advantage by 1, knowing what he's running, 2, potentially being able to reach and stop his like super scroll from being able to get value. And so let's see what we're able to make happen here. He does come down with the Iceman. The Mind Stone is huge. Mind Stone in a Thanos list, especially if you have, if you do or don't have your Lockjaw already, it draws some of those dud draws, those bad flips, those bad rotations, those bad pulls out of your deck, guaranteeing that you're getting more value anytime you rotate a card, anytime you do anything. So like if this is a Lockjaw and a Wasp, that's huge. So we do get Project Pegasus here. We're going to go something super weird. We're going to go Jeff. That can move into the Professor X lane. We have the Nebula plus the Spider-Man. If they go with a Professor X lock here, I don't think they will. But if they do, at least we get some extra scaling in our Nebula. We also lock them from doing rotations. I have a hunch that this is the Lockjaw. And then we're just... Actually, you know what? Let's move Drax over to the left. I don't think they play into mid. I think it's going to be either here or both, but I don't think they're going to play in mid turn. Let's go ahead and lock that in. Let's send it. Oh, they play for all three. Okay. No, so it's Space Stone and then Reality Stone. So nowhere near what I thought it was going to be. It does change into the Vault, which is pretty big, knowing that we now lock them out of being able to play there on the next turn or the final turn before it locks down for good. So they could have an Onslaught. Onslaught here is pretty impactful, pretty scary, but we have the benefit of having our Daredevil. Daredevil is going to give us a very clear-cut answer of if we can send them something with our Green Goblin. We could do Green Goblin plus Titania. On the last turn, we could end up doing Dr. Doom. Unless they just get a miracle flip, a miracle rotation, a miracle pull, then we should have a really good shot of being able to hold this one down. Okay, so Soulstone in mid. Let's go ahead and cap that one out with the Green Goblin. Let's go ahead and go Titania. Our biggest hope here is that they flip into a Professor X. If they flip into a Professor X in this lane, they're stuck. They won't be able to play on the last turn. We'll gain power with our Nebula. We have Dr. Doom to go wide. That's our biggest hope. Let's lock it in. We could also lock them out of this lane, but I think that's a little bit less likely to be advantageous. And so let's go with what we have on hand already. And I think we have a pretty good shot. Now, this deck is pretty solid. I thought about covering it, but there's just so many times that this could be a bad rotation or that you just don't draw the resources that you need. And it can get pretty tough pretty quickly. So let's go with the Green Goblin cap. They can play a big card, a Thanos here, but it's going to rotate. So now it's back to RNG for them. I don't think this version of this deck runs a Jeff. And so we should be okay there. Let's go with this. We'll have 4 power with the Titania. We already beat this lane. The extra 4 brings us to 8 if they get a lucky Blue Marvel flip. This only brings them to 7. We can still outpower it here. This Jeff over here is going to help us win that right lane. And so we are able to help control the board state just enough to be able to find a way to win. We did get lucky that this was a bad flip, a bad rotation. We got lucky in their Reality Stone flip. But that's the drawback with Thanos. You can get some insane high roll, but it's nowhere near as consistent as it used to be. And so there are going to be some games where you get those bad outcomes. So let's go ahead and take the 1 cube. Let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Just Out. And so hopefully they're just out of luck and we're able to hold down this win. Not my crowning joke, but I'll take it. It's acceptable. The middle location is the Vault. They do snap into that. Now we have Storm to lock down another location and Spider-Man to lock down the 3rd. So they're not going to be able to play on the final turn of the game, which is so reminiscent of my original idea with this kind of build, is a no turn 6 for you deck, where they just don't get to do anything on that last turn. And so they did snap. We're okay with it, so I'm going to go ahead and snap back. We're quickly raising the stakes to 4. Now, Snow Guard. Do we use Snow Guard here? Maybe. If we used it this turn, next turn we'd be able to play into the Miniaturized Lab, which is going to be big. I think they snapped because they have a way to go wide. And so I do really want to restrict where they can play on that last turn. So I am going to go with Snow Guard here. As weird as it sounds, we're going to go with Snow Guard. Intentionally, we want to play the Snow Guard. Then we'll do Storm into Spider-Man in the opposite lane that we Storm. That way they just can't play on that last turn. So Snow Guard coming in clutch from the Maria Hill. Ooh, and they Storm for us. Interesting. So maybe they have a no turn 6 for you style deck as well. Let's go ahead and play our Storm into this right lane. We're going to help support it with the good old Nebula. We already have a sizable lead here. We're going to support this lane with Nebula. It won't get very large, but at least it's a little bit. It's a little bit for us. Let's go with that. Next turn, on turn 5, we go Spider-Man into Wakanda. They won't be able to play on the final turn. Now, if they Spider-Man us as well, that's scary. Ooh, they go Dracula. So this is a discard deck. They're not going to be able to get rid of their hand. The most that they can do here... Oh, wait. Snowguard actually delayed this flooded location from locking down. That's an interaction that I didn't know happened with her, but a happy little accident. The happy little accident. Now, Drax would be fine in the flooded lane. Titania might be nice if we could guarantee that it'd come back. Professor X would be kind of funny. because then everybody would be locked out. But at least this way we can play you on that last turn. They're going to have to rely on whatever is in their deck. So Modok, maybe. Modok may be what they need to win. They have the old Modok. My God, how much Modok does that have to be to have that? That is a massive amount of Modok playing. So the Wolverine goes here. They're not going to be able to play anything. We did see that their Apocalypse got discarded. Jeff can help us a little bit. Jeff can help us out a little bit here. Jeff is going to help force a tie. Because this is going to be 6. Nebula brings it to 8, which is wild. Wild that we can get anywhere close to being able to tie here. And so then we go with Titania or Drax. Let's go with Drax just for the flare. Nobody ever plays Drax. Let's go with Drax for the flare, and then it comes down to what they discard. If it pulls into their Apocalypse, it comes into a 50-50. If they flip their Apocalypse here, that's going to make them win this lane by more than what we can overcome. If it pulls their Chavez, then we win. I'm always down for a 50-50. Now, had we drawn our Dr. Doom here, would have been beautiful. Jeff is our second runner-up. It does make this a possible play line. So let's go ahead and lock it in, hope for the best. They are sticking it out. We at least tie in the flooded lane. We have a 4-point lead, and it does get their Apocalypse. Unfortunately, that is going to give them an 8-point lead, and they are going to come away with the win. And they hit us with the good old snap. This location really restricted us quite a bit as well, having to rely on the Snow Guard. All right, let's go ahead and take our licks. We have our fair share of 8 cube losses here and there. Let's go ahead and take it, and we'll jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have a DZ. The first location is Kiln, which is pretty good for us, especially since we're looking to lock down as many locations as we can before the last turn of the game. That way we get more benefit than what they do. I don't know how Titania works in Bar Sinister. I feel like I've done the interaction before, but I just don't remember. I feel like we would have to do Titania plus something else to send those additional cards, because it's any card that is played here, or it says after any card is played there, it switches sides. So I feel like we would have to play one additional card to get the benefit. Let's go ahead and go Nebula. Since we don't have another one of our lockdown cards just yet, let's go Nebula into Kiln. We're going to go Maria Hill, which will give us a 1-cost card in Jet. Not terrible. Not the best. We don't have a lot of use from it, but it's definitely not terrible. We can, I kind of like this. We can Titania plus Storm. We then let them decide if they want to play there or not on that following turn. If they do, then we have Jeff that we can play on the last turn to bounce it back onto our side. I kind of like that idea. It also scares me a little bit because it does leave them one space to play in to send those Titanias back our way. I don't know. It's going to be close, but I think it's a pretty cool idea. So let's go ahead and send all the Titanium missiles onto their side of the board. They have a massive commanding lead in the flooded lane. And then we're just going to sit and do nothing in that lane this turn. Actually, no, we get the Daredevil read, so that's even better. We don't have to do any guesswork. We know if it's going to come back our way or not. All right, so they do play, they play Iron Lad into the middle location. So that's going to send the Titanias back our way. And it all comes down to what they pull from the Iron Lad. So I'm going to go ahead and do both Quinjet and Jeff. On the last turn, I'm looking to do our Doctor. That's going to help us win the Kiln location. And then as long as they don't have a Jeff that can win this lane, and if they do, then it comes down to something like a Hawk plus Jeff. Let's see, what does it copy? I hate that it shows it on their end, but not ours, what card, like what the face of the card looks like. And so it copied an Agent Coulson. Okay, so not huge for them. Absolutely not huge. If they have Jeff, then they can win this location. Then it comes down to those 4 points of power here. And we do get the retreat. After that 8 cube loss, I feel like we probably need to play it a little bit more aggressively. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one, and we're gonna snap whenever we feel like we have a locational or restrictive advantage. All right, next up we have Cool Heron. The first location is the hub. It gives us Deadpool. Not that we necessarily need Deadpool, but it does give it to us. We have that resource now. We also have Storm in our starting hand. Ooh, so we're seeing a lot more Thanos crop up. And it makes sense because I'm honestly seeing a lot less Killmonger. And so maybe if we start seeing too much Thanos, then Killmonger is something that we start working back into our rotation. Let's go with Daredevil. I'm going to do Daredevil into the unknown location. I assume they play there this turn. They do. They have a gold Thanos as well, with the gray border at that. A lot of Thanos. That is a lot of Thanos, my friend. Let's go with Storm. Go with Storm into the hub. We can then do something like Lizard plus Jeff. Is going to be a pretty good follow-up. It's going to be about the same power as a Jessica Jones would be, but we don't have to wait. We have the flexibility to be able to move the Jeff if we need to, and of course it takes cards. So they storm the middle location, which we're perfectly fine with. This looks like probably a very control-heavy Thanos build. So I'm not going to fight for that middle one. We're just going to give it up. We have the flexibility of Doctor Doom plus moving Jeff to try to steal that one away. That I don't think we want to directly fight for it. I'm kind of hoping that they fight for this one. Now they could have a Spider-Man. They could have Spider-Man. They could avoid that flooded lane in mid. They could go Spider-Man into a Professor X block. This could be another version of a like no turn 6 view, something that's really restrictive, which is what we're finding. I'm finding more often is that we're leaning into more like point slam decks, and to prohibit point slam decks, we have things like control heavy Storm, Professor X builds that really restrict those play lines of when they want to drop those cards. So they came down with a Titania and a Cloak. Cloak came from the flooded location. I think regardless, we're going to snap here. I haven't thought through my play line, but I honestly think regardless of what happens, we snap here. Sometimes we're just going to scare them off with the Daredevil. Sometimes we are going to have that advantage. And we do have Spider-Man that we can lock them out of playing on that last turn into like a Doctor Doom. We do have... Let's go ahead and snap before they play their cards. I don't want them to get afraid whenever we see what they play. But I think regardless, we're going to be able to hold it down. And the good thing about Cloak when we have Daredevil is we can see what cards they move and where they're going to position their resources. So we can strategically position ours as well if we want to. They go really heavy here. Oh, wait. And then they go Spider-Man lock in this lane as well. So let's go with a Spider-Man lock of our own. Wild that they are going with a control-heavy Thanos build, which is another one. There's a lot of Thanos builds that are decent right now. Nothing that just stands out as like the only one or the best one, but there are quite a few out there. Let's go with this lane. We're going to guarantee that we have this one secured. This should allow us to win this one because of the scaling from our Nebula. And so let's go ahead and lock it in. We're going to get the easy, I assume, easy retreat here. So we both come down with a 1 cost plus Spider-Man. So the hub actually does a pretty good solid of being able to have that supporting role in our Spider-Man play. And so they have 28 power total in Nidavellir. We are going to have around the same, but I think our scaling with Nebula is going to be just a little bit stronger. And so let's go ahead and skip our way. They should retreat here. Like, I don't see any scenario where they don't retreat. We do get the 2-cube retreat, so I'm glad that we snapped and played it a little bit more aggressively. Let's lean a little bit further in and snap before the Daredevil read comes down. All right, next up we have Justo, and we have some beautiful, beautiful lines here. So we have Storm, we have Professor X to lock down a lane, we have our Doctor Doom to go wide if we don't want to lock down the lane, and then we have Drax to lean in on. We're actually not going to be able to do Professor X unless this location changes with something like, I don't know, Storm? That's the best thing that I like about having cards that can change those locations, is those ones that you just absolutely can't stand, like Dream Dimension or maybe Mindscape. You can change them before they go into effect. You have that flexibility. Let's go and go with Storm. I'm curious if they're going to do the same. Wow, they stack into Dream Dimension as well. Oh, Lockjaw. Is this another? No, this is just like a Thanos rotation, right? Or this is just like a Thor rotation deck, yeah? We're actually going to lock them out of Clintar on the last turn. Not necessarily nowhere, but I'm okay with that. Let's go with Rax. Next turn, we can do a Spider-Man and a Titania, depending on if we have initiative or not. And from there, we can do our Doctor Doom. I don't know that we actually do Titania. We may just hold it and do the Spider-Man instead. Oh, wow, they don't play for nowhere. Wow, okay. That's a surprise. So they do use Dracula in nowhere, but that's fine. We're okay with that. They can win this location. They're not going to be able to really push power wide. They're not going to be able to rotate any more cards. They can move Jeff out, be able to help support one of these lanes. I don't think that's going to be enough. Let's go Spider-Man lock into something like Lizard plus Daredevil plus Titania. They do use 4, so they could potentially draw into their Mjolnir hammer. They have nowhere that they can play it. All hammer and no upside. Don't see a way that they come back. One reveals don't trigger here. They can't play for this lane. They can't pump this one up anymore. They can move Jeff plus Nightcrawler and hope to be able to swing this lane in their favor. That's still a big ask. So let's go ahead and lock in all of these, making sure to play our Titania last, and I think we should be fine. I don't want to go the Doctor Doom route because they have Dracula, so they're very likely going to get over 5 in that lane. And so we do have the big resources coming down, the 5 from Lizard, the 1 from Nebula and Titania. And so they did have the massive 26 power in nowhere. So I'm glad we didn't go with the Doctor Doom route because that would not have been enough power for us to win. This, however, was being able to do 11 power with just cheap resources is such a huge advantage in being able to swing that in-game or that late game back in our favor. And so we played that one a little bit more aggressively by being able to identify the different locations that were there. We were able to lock them out of those key or pivotal areas and secure the 4 cubes. And so with that one, we are going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a like and a comment down below. And as always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.